Resources Faculty Showcase. Thank you for coming today. It's great to see all of you. And for those of you who don't know who I am, most of you do, but for those of you who don't, my name is Diane Reale, and I work in the MIT department here at Tunxis, helping the faculty use Blackboard. And I've also been asked to chair the Going Open Committee, who's one of the two groups that is sponsoring this event today. Thank you to the Center for Teaching for sponsoring this event, and also the Going Open Committee. Before I introduce our distinguished speakers today, I want to first highlight someone very important in this initiative, and that's my supervisor, Adrienne Kelly, who is also our Educational Technology Director. The reason I want to highlight her is she is really one of the first, if not the first, proponent of open educational resources here on campus. And she spearheaded this Going Open group. I believe also, if I remember correctly, Lisa Lavoie, our director of the library, also came up with a name for the committee, Going Open. I also want to acknowledge those members of the Going Open committee that are here today. So if anybody in the Going Open group wants to stand up or wave or whatever, this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the committee. So I really appreciate everybody's effort. Thank you so much. And also, Rosalie Pion, who delivered the wonderful food that we have today, and the Center for Teaching for sponsoring it. So thank you all very, very much. The first presenter is going to be Kevin Corcoran, and he is right here. He is from CTDLC, which is the Connecticut Distance Learning Consortium. And he's going to give us an introduction to open educational resources and tell us a little bit more about the initiative, both nationally and statewide. And whenever you're ready, I'll let you take that away. And you know what?
So thank you. This is my, I think, third or fourth opportunity to come to Tunxis and talk a little bit about open education resources. Before we jump in, just out of curiosity, show of hands, how many are faculty in the room? How many are administrators or support staff? Okay, good. That's the way it should be. It should be predominantly faculty in the room anyway. So let me start with a basic definition. So the Hewlett Foundation is pretty much the standard definition of what open education resources is. When we have a conversation about open, it can mean many different things. There's open source software, there's open access, there's open journals. But when we're talking specifically with teaching and learning, we're talking specifically about open education resources. Now, with this definition, the pieces that I want to focus on are the two words of free and open. So free is about access and affordability for students, but open is the piece that faculty should be concerned about, because that means open access, it means the ability, it means open ability to modify, reuse. It gives you a legal context to use the materials that have been afforded to you in that license structure. And we'll get to that in a little bit. The reason why I've been asked to speak, and I've had the opportunity to speak at a multitude of campuses, is that when we look at the national data of who is aware of open education resources, we're seeing about 66% of the faculty nationwide are not aware of the benefits that may be to them or their students. So quite often, again, the conversation about OER or open gets narrowed down to textbooks, and that may be the context that you have. But that's not actually the whole depth and breadth of it. So you can see the wide range of materials that have been openly licensed for use, or educational use. So it's everything from full courses, to videos, to lectures, to test banks, to images. I mean, textbooks is a part of this, but it's not the whole part of it. It's just a subset of that. So what are faculty using across the nation, across the globe? Well, if you look at this, it's images, videos, video lectures, it could be Khan Academy, it could be a number of things. It's not until you get about the middle of the pack that you start looking at ebooks and open textbooks. So again, the context here is that open education resources for faculty, it doesn't have to be about replacing your textbook. I mean, that's the general context. This can be used to supplement. So if you're looking for images to enhance what you're already doing, if you're looking for videos to enhance what you're already doing, there are licensed material that is open and freely available to you. So again, why does it matter to faculty? Just out of curiosity, how many folks have had students show up first day without their course materials, no books? First week? First month? Didn't have their textbooks until the test was due? Okay. So you get the point, is that our students are showing up to classes unprepared. What's the reason for that? It's multitude, but some of it has to do with cost avoidance. You know, the textbook is expensive to them. They don't know if they're going to necessarily need it. Can they borrow it from somebody else? Can they find an old version? You know, there's any number of ways to cut that, why students are not coming prepared to courses. And then there may be opportunities to use digital resources or printed versions to enhance student engagement. So where the textbook is very two-dimensional, is very tactile, which is great, going into an online resource in classroom or as an added homework assignment may provide an alternate means to engage the students. So there are repositories out there for historical images, art galleries, other interactive pieces that are freely available and openly licensed for your use. And lastly, this movement has been going on for 20 years now. The East Coast is a little bit behind what everybody else is doing. The West Coast has taken the brunt of it and really set the ground for us. But this is a global phenomenon. There are institutions worldwide that are doing this, and there's an opportunity to go cross-departmental, cross-institutional, and cross-state in collaborating with other folks that are doing similar topics. So just a little bit more on benefits to all of you. So access. So I just mentioned that it's not a this or that format. It is supplemental. You can take things and use your existing course structure, your existing course layout, and say, I'm going to enhance that. I'm going to find things that are free and available to me because it's a low-cost way for me to teach, or it's a zero-cost sum to the student, but I'm just going to enhance what I'm doing. Also, it's going to address the fact of day one readiness. If it's something that's free access, or if it's something that's embedded in your course digitally, now you don't have to worry about a student making a decision whether I'm going to purchase it or not. It's there right then and there. Now, do folks know about the federal law that you have to declare which textbooks you're using in your course before the first day? Okay. So what happens if you're teaching a current events or a civics course and all of a sudden Justice Scalia dies and you want to go and divert your attention to a current event? Well, the texts have already been announced, they've already been purchased, and by federal law you can't require the student to go and add an additional expense while you're in the mid-semester. So what do? Well, then you can do just-in-time materials. You can see what's out in the open community and adapt that, or adopt it, or adapt it as you see fit, and it's a zero-cost sum to the students. So it allows you to be a little bit more flexible in what you're doing on a daily basis. And again, we talked a little bit about diversity of approaches. And at another point in time, we'll go a little bit deeper dive on the Creative Commons license structure that allows all of this, but appropriate copyright. Just because you can Google search for something and it's therefore you're downloading does not mean you have the legal rights to do that. So with the license structure with open, you actually are protected by doing that. So another important element of open is the ability to customize. Within the licensing structure, you are given rights to take the other author's work, the other intellectual property right, and modify it as you see fit. Have you ever purchased a commercial textbook or adopted a commercial textbook where 80% of it is what you needed, but the other 20% was not? You had to create supplemental instruction, other materials, but you couldn't go into the core source and modify it to your needs because you didn't have the rights to do that. Well, with open, with OER, you can, and you can mix and match. You can take 3 different items and say, I'm going to combine these and make a new edition or a new rendering of this. And you have the legal right to do that. So you can actually take something and make it contextually relevant to your students, to your needs. And lastly, because I've already touched on this point, is that there is a global phenomenon. There are people worldwide working on this. There are over 500 million global assets available worldwide as far as educational resources that have been openly licensed. So there are nearly that many folks who are adding to the global community, who are open and free and willing to collaborate on creation of new materials or the revision of existing ones. So as I spent maybe the first 10 minutes saying it's not about textbooks, from the student perspective, it is about textbooks to some extent. And if you can't read that, it says, well, when I thought that the bill for my that was just for my bill for my textbooks. So over the last 12 years, the rate of increase for textbooks has been 3 times the rate of inflation. So 3 times the rate of inflation, textbook costs have grown over the last decade or so. For the 14-15 academic year, the state of Connecticut, so 2-year, 4-year publics and privates, our students spent over $147 million on textbooks alone. $147 million just on textbooks alone. For the public institutions, we represent 100 million of that. So the privates were only 47. This is some great data that Florida Virtual Campus put together. But what they found in a national study is that at one point in time in a student's career, 60% of students will go without buying materials. And you all raised your hand before of students showing up first week, first month, whatever the case may be, unprepared. 60% of all students will show up unprepared at some point in time. But for any administrators in the room, as you get lower down this graph, this becomes a little bit more troubling to the institution's bottom line. You have basically 14% who have dropped the course or 10 who have withdrawn. That's lost tuition dollars. They're doing cost avoidance. You know, your students, nobody likes to talk about this, your students are becoming more consumer. So they're making decisions around cost avoidance. So, out of curiosity, since the camera's pointed at me, nobody's gonna see this, how many of you know what your textbook costs are for your students? All right, you should give yourself a round of applause. Most institutions don't have as many people raising their hands. So through the theme here, I'm gonna focus on intro to psych. And just to provide a little context, there was some data that was provided a couple years back. In the 2011-2012 school year, the community colleges across all 12 campuses had 11,000 students that did intro to psych. On an average, the students were spending $175 per textbook for that class. So just in Connecticut, against the 12 community colleges, students spent nearly $2 million just on intro to psych. So right here, this is probably a little bit outdated. The cost for this intro to psych book is probably over $200 for a brand new one. So you think about an alternative. We can go digital. We can do rental. Well, even there, it's $100. And after the semester, they no longer have access to that. So if you're talking about foundational classes like math, where they're building or referring back to pieces, they no longer have that book after that term. So now they have nothing to refer back to. So there are a number of repositories out there that have collections of free and available materials. So Merlot is an initiative out of Cal State. And what this organization has is just a means to collect information worldwide. And it's not just a repository of a collection of materials. It gives you information in different formats, whether it's HTML, PDF, EPUB, or the ability to print on demand some of these pieces. But you can see when it was first added to the collection, when it was last updated, but more importantly, there are 2 ways to see the quality or value of this. So they have sort of the Amazon review. As a user looks at this, adopts it, they can give a general review on how well it met their needs. But Merlot goes a step further. They actually pay folks to be peer reviewers. So what they do is they have faculty worldwide that they pay to go against a rubric and do an unbiased score on these materials. But even beyond that, you can actually see how many folks have adopted this. So how many times have it's been added to their particular portfolio or their collection. So generally speaking, I know that there's always a concern, okay, well, OER sometimes means digital, and my students may not have the needs or the means to actually do something in a digital format. So another initiative out of Rice University in Texas is OpenStax. Now OpenStax, again, has the same pieces. Anything that is digitally available in their repository is absolutely free. But if you're in the point where you really want something tactile, they have the ability to do printed, hardbound, colored pieces that rival any commercial textbook you will ever see. And this book, this Intro to Psych book, was $33 delivered, shipped, printed, bound. This one, because it's a little bit more meaty, the stats book, was about $55. So I'm going to pass these around. You know, feel free to take a look at the binding, look at the color, what have you. But these things, and pardon me, I'm going to do this. I tend to do this, but it's got some depth and volume to it. So, the state of Connecticut, or the state of the state. So there are these public interest research groups, PIRGs. They're student advocacy groups, and Connecticut has a chapter that's housed at stores. One of the focus areas for them is around student affordability. And you can see a little while ago, they had a sample letter that you could write to your legislator and stress the importance of affordable college experience. There was enough momentum that Representative Haddad, who represents the Yukon, Mansfield, Eastern District, basically penned a legislative act that is now signed into law. So Connecticut has a law in the books that's basically looking to study OER and its adoption. So there's nothing that's a mandate. This is an exploratory piece. The thought is, how can we get a good sense of what's going on in the state, and how can we support these initiatives going further? So there is a OER task force that's been legislative created, and I've been honored to be named one of the co-chairs representing the Board of Regents structure. And what the task force is going to do is it's actually going to reach out and it's going to do a survey to get a sense of what folks' feelings around OER, how aware they are of the process, who's been doing what, and what we can do to help aid folks if they feel that this is a good avenue for them to explore. Our end goal is to produce a report back to the legislature in October and basically produce something that says, well, here are the opportunities, here are the potential obstacles or challenges, and here's how we recommend challenging those and moving forward. So while this is on the books, it's a good first step, but just remember, this isn't mandating anything. And all of the conversation at the state level, at the legislative level, and even at the Board of Regents administrative level is how can we support an opt-in piece when it's appropriate. So I just want to state, there's a benefit to you all in having greater freedom in selecting materials and adapting as you see fit. There's a positive output for students in affordability and access, but nobody is coming down and saying you must. Now, to provide a little bit more context, at the federal level, the Affordable College Textbook Act has been reintroduced to Congress. This was something that was introduced a couple years ago, and it looks like it's going to be folded into the Reauthorization Act for higher ed. So Dick Durbin and Al Franken put together this bill, and what it is they're proposing the federal government put some dollars around competitive grant procedure to allow faculty to get compensated for whatever efforts, whether it's just researching it and writing critiques on this, or actually being compensated for the adoption or adaption of materials. Now this is just the start. So the Department of Labor, the Federal Department of Labor has already put a policy in place. If the DOL is funding a project, the outcome has to be Creative Commons license. It has to be open. So we do have TACT grants in Connecticut. The output of those TACT grants have to be openly licensed. They have to have a Creative Commons license structure. The the federal DOE, the Department of Ed, is going to adopt language that's going to say if you're receiving money from the DOE, you're going to have to produce something with that is an open piece. And the thought is, if the taxpayers of America are paying for the grants, for the funding, that they should be able to reuse this as they see fit. The general phrase is if it's publicly funded, it should be publicly shared. So I want to talk a little bit about one of your sister organizations. Housatonic Community College had 2 or 3 innovative faculty that said, I've got a problem. I'm using a certain formula, I'm using certain materials, and I'm not seeing the results that I really want. What they were doing is they had an intermediate algebra program, and they were using Pearson's combination of my math lab and the Pundle textbook. And for whatever reason, they weren't seeing the results that they wanted. So what they did is they explored an open alternative. So there's a product called My Open Math, and I think Hendry's going to be talking about that in a little bit more detail. It has a zero-cost sum It's an online homework site that these students use in class in lab format. So it's not something they're required to do on their own, but they can. And then what they have is they have a textbook that is completely free if used digitally, but has a low-cost buy-in of $30 if they want a printed bound version of that. So that textbook was developed by Scottsdale, Arizona's community college system. So when they started us off, they only were doing it in 2 or 3 classes. I believe they're now 20 to 22 sections deep. They've saved their students over $200,000 in the last year and a half just by making this one small change. And what they've done is they've also looked at this from not only a quantitative of a cost savings, but qualitative. When they've actually gone back and looked at student results, they're saying that their students are performing at the same level, if not better in some cases. They have a Jumpstart program that's dealing with remedial students, and what they're seeing is when the students are going through this program, they may be actually jumping a level on their AccuPlace, or they may be jumping out of actually remedial math altogether. So they've just started doing that, and they've had some great results on that. So I know this maybe is not the question that's burning, but maybe it's in the back of your mind, is what about the bookstore? The bookstore, unfortunately, is put in a very hard spot right now. There's this movement of open. There is this student voice that's being heard about affordability, and the bookstore's caught in the middle. And so a lot of institutions are worried about the bookstore, what revenues it brings in, how is it going to be impacted by this open movement. Well, what you see is over the last few years, nationally speaking, your bookstore is probably getting less revenues off of book sales all in together. About 60% of students are going to Amazon for their books, not the bookstore across the country. And what we're seeing, though, with this site is that because students are doing cost avoidance, they may not take a course because of the book cost. That you're losing out tuition. When you start substituting high-cost commercial textbooks with something that's low cost, no cost, you start to see an increase in tuition dollars because now they're not avoiding that high-cost class anymore. They're actually taking it because the tuition dollars isn't as hard to swallow when the textbook costs aren't $200 to $300 to $500 on top of the tuition cost. So what we're seeing is institutions that are doing OER adoption are actually seeing a net gain on tuition, although they will realize a slight decrease in bookstore revenues.
They have questions right now.
I have 2, but I won't hog all the time. The first one was the Rice books. Now, did the students go and order those, or is that something the faculty would put through as an order for their class?
Well, the great thing about the OpenStax program is that they work with your local bookstore, so they actually can do fulfillment. They can do a fulfillment arrangement with MBS, Follett, Barnes & Nobles, anybody. So a lot of the OER providers are now starting to have bookstore relationships so that the students can actually use their financial aid dollars through the bookstore. Did you have a second one?
I did. So you made a comment that you might be losing tuition because of the students not being able to afford the courses. But I know at our institution we provide the books to the library that students can take out for free. So that I guess would be a negligible point at our institution. I think.
Anytime you can provide a low-cost, no-cost solution, that's fantastic. So whether it's having something that's on loan through the library or using digital resources through the library, that's a net win for the students around access and affordability. So, I think if you do a cross-section, you're still probably seeing high enrolled courses that have high book costs associated with that. And if you extrapolate that across the whole system, it's having a big hit. It's kind of like the intro to psych piece where it's $2 million just for that one book for one calendar year. Yes, sir.
Quick question. If it was an OpenStack, say I'm interested in an OpenStack book and I want to evaluate it, is there someone I can call or email to evaluate it? Like for instance, I work with Pearson now. They have something new. I just call them the rep. They send me a complimentary copy and figure it out.
You can go on their site at any point in time and download their digital assets for free. So they have it in PDF, EPUB, probably in HTML. So you can go and evaluate that at any time just by going to their website. Anybody else? Oh,
I want to make a comment. I believe we have a math instructor who uses OpenStax, and he just put the entire PDF up into Blackboard for the students.
that's the beauty of digital asset is that, you know, it's absolutely free, there's no cost, there's no shipping. And you can just embed it right inside Blackboard like any other resource. So, I mean, it's easy access, it's right there, they can't say I forgot it, it never showed up. It's embedded right in their website, right into the Blackboard course. I know that Hendry's not coming, but this is the website that Hendry is using or is in the process of implementing into his courses. This is the same website that Housatonic is using, and I believe there's faculty at Gateway that are also evaluating this to replace the Pearson My Math Lab piece. So again, the bundle for Pearson is around $260, and of this in and of itself, it's a $0 cost sum. It's community developed, so that means that the test banks, the tools and all of itself are basically updated by the community. I know that when Housatonic deployed this, they wanted to make it a little bit more Connecticut-centric, so they actually changed some of the pieces to this. So again, the great thing about open is it has a license structure that allows you to modify it to your specific needs. Francine?
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
Sure.
weren't you working with, you know, we lost the director of Ed Tech at Housatonic in a terrible car crash, but he was working on trying to get something so it would be connected right from Blackboard.
Yes.
You're involved with that, right?
Yes.
With my open math.
So there is a protocol that's called LTI, it's Learning Technologies and Interoperability. It allows systems to talk to one another. So there is a way for Blackboard and My Open Math to talk to one another, so students can do single sign-on from Blackboard into this, and then if they do any homework that you want to retain and bring back into the gradebook inside Blackboard, it would also pull that information. So I know we were working with the system office with the Blackboard environment to get that set up for Housatonic, but that is something that could be opened up for the entire system.
You know, I'll do some follow-up on that because it kind of stalled once everything happened with Jose. And we were kind of wondering where it was at too, so, I work at the system office, guys. Don't throw anything at me. You probably know my name, Francine Skolicki, I send out stuff to you all the time, so, but I used to work at Tunxis, so you have to be nice to me. To see where that stands as far as the LTI linkage, Kevin, okay, cause I know it kind of, you know, it got stalled after everything happened with Jose.
Since I guess I'm stalling for time to a certain extent. Merlot is one initiative from Cal State. Affordable Learning Solutions is another initiative out of Cal State. And they have an interesting tool on their website. So if you're interested, if you're just curious, you're not making a plan, you're very happy with your textbook, you just want to see what might be supplemental material, they have this great tool where you can plug in your ISBN number. And what it will do is it will pull up any materials that they can find related based on tags to that ISBN number. So it'll give you either full replacements on the textbook side, or it will give you supplemental information that will support what you're doing. And if you want to do a keyword search, you can go beyond that and just do broad-based searches, and you can see what might be supplemental or replacement pieces. There are a number of repositories. I know that Lisa Lavoie and the librarians at Tunxis have a great LibGuide that has a number of OER resources.
Rachel will be.
Oh,
You
so-
stole my thunder with this one, Sharon. That's all right.
All right, well then I guess I'm gonna, that's
No,
my.
no, no.
Yes, sir.
I'm Will O'Hare from Three Rivers. We've been
Oh.
sending emails. One of the things I understand with our contractual obligation with the bookstores is that if we're using book, we can't tell students they can go find it on Amazon cheaper. So my question then is, if I go to OpenStax and it's coming through my bookstore, are they gonna just increase the price with their take on, in other words, you said it was $33, but is it gonna be $33 plus the percentage that the bookstore puts on it for, and then we're back to the same thing all over again?
So the understanding I have that OpenStax has with the major bookstore providers is that there'll maybe a nominal fee. So maybe it won't be 33, maybe it'll be 35, but it certainly won't be 135. Now, I haven't seen the annals of the bookstore agreement, but most of the contracts state something like that you can't do an alternate purchase from the bookstore. But if you have a zero cost sum because you're using a free digital asset, you're not actually going to an alternate site to purchase it. So I mean, it's semantics to some extent, but it is a loophole. And I do know that the bookstore committee, that they're actually coming together right now to talk about the language of when they go out to the next RFP for the bookstore, that they want to make sure that there's language that supports open initiatives in that, so the bookstore won't be a barrier. Now, with that being said, again, that same federal law requires that the ISBN number be listed prior to students registering. So that doesn't mean that the students can't go get that number and go to Amazon or Chegg or wherever the case may be, so. Yes?
I haven't seen Henry present on this, so is My Open Math, is that book, skills bank that they work with, presentations like Khan Academy, is it a comprehensive program?
It's more like a regular textbook,
Okay.
like similar to our intermediate algebra textbook. It's set up very similarly, you know.
So it's a
not-
textbook?
It is, it's a textbook, and, well, not the My Open Math, they have a textbook that goes with it, sorry. The My Open Math is more like my math lab,
Okay.
but it just doesn't have all the bells and whistles. So my math lab's really easy to navigate and get around, and it's, you know exactly how to put in your answers so that you don't. This one doesn't have as many bells and whistles, but it's you know, it's similar to the My Math Lab homework, online environment, so.
And my understanding that there's also videos that basically talk about concepts. So if a student's doing, I don't know, whatever it is, order of operation or whatever the case may be, there's actually a video that accompanies it to basically give some context, sort of like Khan Academy.
Yeah, or My Math Lab.
Yep.
It really is, it's like a My Math Lab without, all the pretty bells and whistles.
And the cost.
And the cost, yeah, and you're not, that's what you're, you know, you're not getting the bells and whistles, cause it's a lot cheaper.
And I don't think I'm gonna steal Rachel's thunder with this, but another resource in addition to what she's gonna talk about later is, in the faculty resource course that's, everybody has access to, all faculty across the system by default, inside of Blackboard, Toby has added an OER section. So some resources are listed in there as well.
Great. Any other questions? All right, then I will pass it back to Diane.
Steve is a professor of English here at Tunxis Community College. He has been with us for a number of years and has been using, his use of OER goes way back. You say it was like 20 years or something you've been doing some of this open educational, utilizing some of these open educational resources? So he's going to show us what he does in his courses with open materials.
Thank you, no, I'm not gonna need that. I think I'm all right. My discussion begins with a story. That is, back in about 2001, teaching composition, or it was composition 2, I'm not sure which one it was a writing course. And I had just transitioned to a new textbook. I can't remember what the textbook was. That was 15 years ago or so. But during the course of the semester, my students and I searched online, and we found every reading in the book was online. And the typical sort of composition book. You had a reader, and it had what they call the apparatus, the teaching portion, the pedagogical portion. And when we did that, I decided, well, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to provide the reading materials to the students myself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide the apparatus, the thing that they study and the thing they practice and the thing that they apply. I'm just going to provide that myself. I've been doing this for a long time. I think I know what I'm doing, and so I decided to do that. Now, as a result of the analysis that we did of the readings in the book, this necessitated a way of delivering the information. And the way that I was most familiar with doing it at the time was via the web. Not via Blackboard, but with using technologies that I was comfortable with. And so this is what I came up with. And this version here of the website was first started up in 2007. I had about 2 other versions of this website going, beginning in about, I can't remember when it was, but it was a long time ago. So I needed a place to take all of the things that I wanted to do for the students in the writing course, and I needed to unify them into one place. And this is where the unification happened. Now, if you look at the top of the website here, you have a list of the courses that I teach. So we have Composition 2, British Literature 2, New Media Perspectives over there, Creative Writing Fiction. So all of the courses that I teach the students can find here on the web. They don't have to log in to Blackboard. They simply go onto the internet, type in the URL, or however they want to do it, and then come to their place here. So the way it looks is, this is the composition area. If you mouse over the composition, I teach, if you mouse over the composition area here, I teach 2 versions of the course. One on Monday, Wednesday, one on Tuesday, Thursday, all right? If the Monday, Wednesday students want to look at the Tuesday, Thursday calendar, that's perfectly fine. If you click on the Composition 2 Spring 2016 link, you are linked to the syllabus of the course. If you move your mouse over this, you can go to the calendar for the course. And what I decided to do was, after the analysis of the textbook fiasco, is what I call it, I decided simply to create a digital calendar that everybody can access, and then to embed all of the readings that I wanted students to do in the digital calendar, just like any other webpage. What else is on the website are, if I go back to the calendars, what you probably also see here is every assignment is prepared all the way into the end of the semester. So students know that they can go here to click on what they need to be able to do for the final paper in the course. They know what to prep for. The other issue is that all of these resources here are freely available to everybody else. They're freely available to people who want to come in and criticize what I've done. It's not all perfect. Sometimes I come in and look at something that I've done and I find spelling errors. I find I'm like, oh my God, I gotta fix that. But since it's online, I can do it really fast and then pretend that it was perfect. But since the materials here, that is study notes, the thing on fallacies, one way to think about a thesis, every writing teacher has their way of coming at these things, coming at these things. And I think that the materials that I use for my students and for my own instruction in class should reflect my own point of view on these things. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is that, or another thing that I find interesting about it, is that for any of the assignments or any of the readings, anybody can come in and take Analysis 3 and just swipe it. They can take it. Hopefully, they'll improve it, or they'll just take, or change it, whatever it is, whatever they want to do. But the assignments and things are freely available. Sally, would you like to say
Sure.
anything about that?
Yeah, I owe you an email from a week ago, because I told Steve that, I've been looking at his stuff, and, you know, some of this is also on the e-portfolio, but it's like people don't go there as readily. A lot of this, you know, a lot of your analyses are there. And so in Comp 2, my analysis papers leading up to the second paper, I had my own language, and, you know, since it just was fresh on my mind, I went and checked out Steve's analysis, and I liked his pieces better. So I went in today, and I grabbed analysis 2. And I augmented analysis 2 and got rid of 2 spelling errors. And then I
Fixed all this.
I should send it to you. But anyway, the point is, I needed a just-in-time building block, short assignment that augmented the one that I had in my files that I just didn't like all that much. And I brought it to class. So, you know, it's open, it's easy. I think part of the reason, you know, we have a first year writing e-portfolio that nobody goes to. And I think it's because it has a login. It's an extra step. Here you type in Ersinghaus, and there it is. So if we all did something like, that's what's been on my mind, is we've been doing this for a long time, but it always depends on what's sticky, to use a Malcolm Gladwell idea, right? You know, what's sticky? So that's how I used it, and, you know, I owe you a big thank you, because it was just a great way to jump in there.
But I mean, I think that's fantastic, because one of the reasons that I think it's fantastic is because we can't see everything, we can't cover everything, so this share and share alike business is actually pretty good in this, because teaching is always, or learning about teaching or improving about teaching, I think is always collaborative. It's always collaborative, bouncing ideas off of one another and all of that. And so that's what is going on here. That's what, I guess what makes it an open educational resource is that it is shareable. I'm not so interested in the cost saving. I'm more interested in the pedagogical thrust of this kind of work. Much of the writing can come from problems that I have in the classroom, or problems that I hear about, for example, this issue of preparing for class. So if I write an essay on how you prepare for class, and I make them read it, instead of standing in class and saying, guess what, you need to do this. You know, you also have to go read it. You have to go read it. And if you like to write these sorts of things, many people don't, I do, it becomes fun. It becomes something that I can do for the student. And the students are sort of happy that they don't have to purchase anything. They may have to purchase other supplements that the department has decided every student should have. But in this case here, they're pretty happy about it. And I do tease them about it. I say, since you're not buying a textbook for this class, you're going to put an extra after lunch. And they all say, yes, 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 we will. And that's it.
Steve? I have a question.
Yes.
Do you just put it out there, so to speak, on your site, or do you use a special license, like Creative Commons license or anything like that, or you just kind of put it out there?
I just put it out there. I could easily put up a Creative Commons license and associated with the website, but I'm not going to do that because this is software that the college owns. So the college right now owns the material that's on it, and I can't necessarily apply a license to it.
Oh, okay.
I was actually going to say something similar to that. Is that and Kevin, you could probably respond to this more directly, but I just want to mention that just because something is up on a website doesn't make it open educational resources. In other words, you have told your colleagues it's fine for them to go and swipe it and augment it and make use of it, but you can't assume that just because you find similar kind of content that some other educator has put up, that they're fine with it. And that's why I was going to ask the same thing.
There has to be, yeah, there has to be a statement up here that says, you know, if you wanna take it,
Right.
that's fine. The Creative Commons license makes it easy because it
Right.
has all the language attached to it.
Exactly.
and all of
But
that.
some people assume that just because something is on the web, that they
Oh,
can
yeah.
download it and use it or amend it, and that's not the case. I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify.
That's true, that's true.
So I have a question about that. In the absence of language, what's the assumption?
The assumption is that it is copyrighted and that you have to request permission from the author. Like I had something that I wanted to download and put into a course, and I emailed the person and said, because you can link to something, you know, you can put a link to it, but if you actually want to download it and use it or amend it, you should ask for permission.
Yeah, there has to be language that says that, and I just haven't done it.
Well, I think there's a lot, of ongoing professional development that has to happen around that, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
You know, as we continue this discussion, because people aren't clear on it.
I'm just curious, I think it's becoming less and less of an issue, but I was wondering, how often do you come across students that are completely computer illiterate and you spend a great deal of time working with them to get them to navigate this?
That's always an interesting question. I would say that there are typically about 2 or 3 students in every class that I teach where we use this that are actually competent. But most of them are incompetent in terms of technology. One of their major issues is understanding of URLs is very hard. I mean, for some reason that they don't understand what URLs do. And so they have a hard time with this. In one way, it's because I also teach in new media and technology. And in one way, it's because technology has been, these kinds of technologies have become more like appliances than like new, like back in 2001 or back in 95, we were all, oh my God, it's new, it's fantastic. All these things that we can do. I still have that ethos myself. But no, so I have to do some instruction on what to do, how to bookmark it, how to get there, and one of the reasons that I chose the weblog format is that it's relatively easy to navigate for people who are confident at navigating websites. But so I guess it's kind of good. They get a little bit better at navigating websites by doing this. Yeah.
I'm curious, because we're finding a lot of students just mostly using their phones instead of laptops. Is it responsive for their phones?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it happened yesterday in creative writing. Some of the readings that I have, I usually make copies for them to read of very, very short stories. But what happened yesterday was they were so used to the packet that I gave them that a few of them came in not having been paying attention. And so they didn't read Great Dogs or Nietzsche's Daughter for March 7th. So what did they do? They just took out their phones and they were able, I didn't want to kick them out. You know, we were having too much fun. And so they took out their phones and they went in and they got the links. And so they were able to do something. I don't know what it was that they were doing, but I know what I was doing. So, yeah. I mean, there's some things that you can only read online. And so one of the things we'll be doing for next week's creative writing is doing, reading some comics. But, and so doing this does open up a lot of interest. I mean, if you do have these kinds of interests, then it's kind of cool. Any other questions?
Are they also submitting their work to you through this site, or is this just for you to post to them?
Just for me to post to them.
Okay.
Yeah. The website itself is one issue. I mean, they're as students do research. I mean, incidentally, I will put up on the front page, in a post, I'll put up, links that they might find interesting. It's not
Right, so anybody, and even though Tunxis owns this software, anybody on the internet, anybody in the public could access that
Oh, yeah.
URL. And no one has to log on.
Nobody has to log in. It was years ago when I used to have many conversations with my colleagues about this, John Timmons, Rachel, and one of my rules was that I didn't want to do anything where students have to click twice. One click away. Everything should be one click away. It's just easier to do.
And Steve, is this Blackboard, is this?
No, this is on the web.
It's on the web.
It's not a latchkey system.
It's just like a regular website.
It's like a
Anything.
regular website.
We could type in your name and probably find a link to it.
Yes, yes.
Second after ratemyprofessor.com.
Yeah. You would think that they would have lots of nice things to say after getting all this
You would
free
think.
stuff, but
First hit for all of us is rate my professor.
And do you teach online and on ground?
sometimes I teach, every other couple of semesters I teach online.
And do you do it the same way?
No.
Okay.
No, everything's done inside Blackboard,
Blackboard.
in a typical online course approach, yeah.
And that's because Blackboard, that is the medium for,
Yeah.
that's the decided medium for all fully
Yes.
online
Well,
courses.
years ago when I first started teaching online, and this was way back in the top class days or whatever we were using, way before WebCT and all that. I would create HTML resources and simply link out from top class to things that were on the web, but they would be displayed in the iframe or whatever it was.
Whatever the LMS was.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But,
Learning management system.
but I don't do that anymore, so, yeah.
Any other questions? Steve, thank you very much. You really Okay, for the second half of this show, the next presenter is Deb Hickox, and she is an adjunct professor of English here at Tunxis, and she's been teaching here at Tunxis since 2010. She teaches developmental English, I believe, and composition. And she's going to show you her journey to using online materials. So take it away if you want to use it.
I think I'm okay with it. Thank you. I just want to tell you, my objective here is just to offer you an insight into my exploration into reaching students and giving them a better pathway to reading and writing. And I'll tell you how I felt about things and how I changed things up. So I started thinking, how do I choose topics and materials that I used to teach? Okay? And what do you do for class resources? You might be thinking about these as well. Well, I look in books. If you're a math or chemistry person, you do that. Philosophy, English, etc. Right? That's how we get our topics. If we're doing in English, what we're going to be doing is certain topics for discussion. Talk to book publishing representatives. We've been doing that for a while, right? Open up newspapers and magazines if we want current events. Look on the web. We should be doing that if we're not already. Watch television, especially if you can get BBC News, you'll get real news, but just saying. Or ask your children, right? What's going on with them in college or wherever? What are they interested in? So, what do you think about the topics that you choose for your classes? What words would you describe your topic? Well, I'll tell you how I described my first couple of years as a teacher. And I thought my topics were tedious because, I talked about money, student loans, nutrition, food, lackluster, Disney's effect on society, right? Uninspiring, anything else that there is. Repetitive, it got boring for me, the same topics over and over again, right? So boring, basically, is how I would describe my topics that I was choosing, right? And one of the things I wanted to do was have a book that had everything in it, right? And so I would go, and maybe this is you. Monday, can't trust that day. thinking, I lack the wow factor. So you're going to class and you have the wow factor. Meanwhile, your students are picking up on it and they're saying, oh, hey, how about those meths? I know there's a better way. So, you know, they're not coming to class, they're skipping classes, or they are coming periodically or whatever. Or you go home and you've got to find it. You're so desperate, you're looking for a topic. I've got to find another topic. Meanwhile, your student's going, oh, I love to learn, but so far I fell asleep twice. You know? So do you see your students in the cafeteria? If you happen to go there during class, right, maybe you run to get a copy of something, whatever, before class, during class, after, do you see your students in there? I did. I used to see mine in there once in a while, right? And they're, where can I take Card Shark 101? Vegas, baby, yeah, Vegas. That's what they're thinking, right? But they just skipped your class. So you've got to move it. Is this you? Are you a dinosaur? Dinosaur doing things the old way, but you think it's great. You think it's great. That's what I was doing. I was thinking, well, it's great. It's all right. They're coming. Well, not very often, you know, and whatever, right? And meanwhile, your students are thinking like that, right? You're thinking, another class. You should be dancing, right? Everybody should be dancing. When you go, you should have a topic that you're happy with, something that excites you, a topic that your students will be happy with. So I began to think about my students, what to do. What are they interested in? So literally, I watched them. And what I found was that they were in the area down there with their cell phones and texting, with their music and their apps, with their PCs and their headphones. All the heads were in the cloud. Now today they're out playing stickball on those, but okay, right? So that made me think. So I had a little bit of time, and one summer, I started asking some questions. I developed 3 rudimentary, basic questions that I started thinking about technology, because I didn't know a whole lot about technology then. What is the impact of social media on students? Because, you know, they're in there texting, but in that alcove, they're not talking. They're saving that for the card table, right? What's the latest trends in technology? Because, you know, you start hearing things like refrigerators that are going to tell you what you need, right? Cybersecurity, including your personal security. I have a friend telling me, I have 70 friends on Facebook. I said, this is great, 70 friends on Facebook. I said, how many have you met? She said, well, one. With that, they're her friend on Facebook, right? So I started thinking, well, the students are all having Facebook people, right? What if they know about that? Do they realize that when they put something on the web, that it's out there? Do they actually understand that? So I started thinking about cybersecurity. And that led me to an epiphany. I happened to be at a meeting, department meeting, and thanks to a fellow adjunct, Molly, I'll say, I learned about the library resource guides. And what I did is I went over there and I spoke with Rob Royer. We had a discussion regarding the topic that I was interested in pursuing, which was technology. Now, Rob was a fountain of knowledge on that topic, clearly. As is Rachel, okay? And so he gave me some advice on how to proceed. He showed me how to go on EBSCO. He showed me how to use resources that Tunxis had here available. So I left, I went home, I explored, it was a summer. Again, I contacted Rob back and forth through emails. I went to see him a couple times, and we worked together to set up the course. What about materials? Well, prior to this, my books were costing $80 for one book, right? It was quite pricey. The essays in it were always outdated, and as I already previously told you, they were boring. Okay. So by the time you get your book, the materials in it are 3 years old. You know, how do you update it? Right, pricey and whatnot. Okay. So now, because it's a website, we have the advantages. My students hang on to their dollars more. Yes, I do require books. I require they say, I say. I require the hacker book. Okay. The articles are on my website. They can be independent. When I first did this, I was so paranoid about the website stuff, everything online, that I would print it out. And I would say, oh, if I don't print it out, they're not going to read it. Well, now I don't even print them out because they go online and they read it. And if they want a copy, they'll print it out. Okay? And not only that, that's an old radio thing, but my stuff is all current. So I don't have any of these, you know, outdated articles. If they are, I, you know, do periodically update them. Okay, so let me show you the resource guide that I have developed with Rob Royer. Here it is. Now, let's see if I can bring this up a little. The three, here's the essay 1, for example. There we are. So here's the questions. Essay 1, has the rise of social media served to bring people closer together, or has it served as a distraction to interpersonal communication relationships versus the original social media? Number 2, the future is now. Are these advances good things, as in beneficial to society, or do you see them as headed for nefarious situations? And the third one will be, can technology walk side by side or hand in hand with freedom? And all these articles can be opened and accessed. These videos, you can show them or you can ask them to see, take a look at them. Rob's added in some books here, right? And some you can open and just get a preview, okay? And others they can go over there and you know, actually take them out of the library. So it's really a wonderful resource for my students. You know, the whole course basically is in here as far as articles go. I update it periodically with Rob. So that's what I just wanted to show you, that you can do it. You know, this is not it's not rocket science. It just takes a little bit of legwork, a little bit of footwork, a little bit of thinking, and then Rob will help you set it up, or somebody in the department will help you set it up.
And it's just amazing, the collection of articles that are in there that I think you might find eye-opening.
So if you're looking to, you know, get your students more interested in a topic that you yourself can update, you know, for them and make it more palatable for them, even if you don't have your whole course there, you could, you know, work with the library resource guide and they'll help you do that. Yes?
I'm just wondering, how many semesters have you tried this out now? What kind of feedback are you getting?
The students love it, love it.
So you feel like they're coming to class more?
They're coming to class now, and good discussions, great discussions,
Wonderful.
you know, and everything. And, you know, of course, they employ a method of jigsaw where they can, you know, switch groups around and whatnot, and so it really works out well for them.
Fantastic.
I'm very pleased, and I've been doing this now for a couple of years,
And-
so it's really worked out.
And I can tell she has good groups, because she's had me come into her classes for a couple of semesters now, just to give them a little overview of Blackboard before in the first week or two. And they're all there, and they're all listening, and they're very polite, and, you know, even if they've used Blackboard before. And so she's got a good, you know, she's had good groups of students, and you can tell they're interested, they're ready to go. And I think it just makes it really nice and accessible for them.
So I'd highly recommend that. Any other questions? Oh, that's a good point. I just want to say, I did link this all to Blackboard. I have a lot of stuff on Blackboard. So between this for resources and Blackboard, where they can check on their assignments, if they're absent or whatever, you know.
And now
it's
you're
good for
having them submit assignments online too.
This year, this
using the
semester for the
assignment
first
store
time.
Blackboard.
Mhm.
So they're not just emailing or handing them in
Right.
class. So you're kind of doing a combination of both. She's doing the best of all possible worlds.
Yeah.
So can any faculty or staff get to this via the
Yes.
library? Okay.
But there are some articles that she's using from the library databases, and the person who clicks on the link would have to log in and authenticate as a
Right.
student. So it's a mixture of purely open resources, like
Right.
TED Talks, et cetera, and
Others.
primarily, I think, you probably talked with Rob about it.
Mhm.
Some
Yeah.
of those articles probably are on the web, but
Mhm.
in case they go away, it's nice to have the stable,
Mhm.
library link while we have it.
Yeah.
So we'd be using Banner or whatever to
They
access
log in with their My Comment login.
My comment.
Yep.
She's going to talk about that.
And yet, I think if they're here on campus
Yeah, they go
on the
right in.
network,
Yeah.
they go right in and
Yeah.
they don't, so if they're in.
Yeah,
the
we're
room-
able to tell if you're on or off campus by the URL.
Right, so if they're on campus and they've logged on to our Tunxis network, either in the computer center, the library, or in a classroom, they can go right into the article. It's only when they're off campus, it's only when Deb is off campus that if she tried to access some of these that are linked to the library databases, that then she'd be prompted for or they would be prompted for the ID, net ID and password.
Yes.
I'm not sure whether or not you know this, Deb, or maybe Diane, you know. I'm wondering whether or not, is this something that's available that they do I was thinking to myself, wow, this would be a great webinar if I could get with librarians, but I don't wanna do it if it's not something that's available at all.
I went and asked.
Okay, well, thank you, at least you can answer my question.
I know, we know.
Okay.
Now, Tim, you do something, you wanna?
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
MCC
Manchester
does.
does something where they, within Blackboard, they write code so that the student just hits the link and it goes right to the LibGuide.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Right? Am I saying that right? And Gateway got it up and running too, so, you know, that way they don't have to search for your LibGuide. The
Oh.
way that the code is, you set it up in Blackboard, when they hit the link, they're right in your LibGuide.
Yeah, the librarian could send the link to your Blackboard course and then they just hit the web.
Oh, is that right?
That's how I have it in mind.
Oh, okay, okay. Something I
Yeah.
can learn.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy process.
Right, you don't have to do it, the librarian will make the link to, and send it to you via email and then you upload it to your Blackboard.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions for Deb before we move along? Okay. Thank you so very, very much. Next up is Rachel Hyland, who is a librarian here at the Tunxis Community College Library, and she's going to be showing us our Going Open OER website and how to get started, and maybe talk more about LibGuides and the term research guide versus LibGuides, and because I get confused on that. Thank you.
Oh, no! I can't get to the R drive, but that's, because I was gonna start out.
Well, you know what? We can do that. I can log off and you can log
No,
on.
it's no big deal. I was just gonna show everybody, and you might have seen it, on February 16th, Kanye West, bizarrely enough, tweeted, "We gotta lower the cost of textbooks." So it's even, and it has, as of today, I looked, it had 96,000 likes and 89,000 retweets. So even Kanye is in on the OER bandwagon. So I was going to show you that, but that's okay.
I'm not sure I want him to be a flag carrier.
You don't want to be connected with Kanye there? but-
He's got a lot of tech.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, that's
All right.
Rachel, did you want this?
No, it's okay. I'll speak loudly. Thank you. Okay. But then again, it's probably good because I didn't want to throw you off because I am not just focusing on OER as textbooks, just the general spectrum of OER. I'm going to show you, I also developed a research guide. So from the library's homepage under research guides. And it's called Going Open. You can just search open. And I am a member of the Going Open committee. I have been interested in open education resources for a long time. And I've seen it as the next frontier for libraries and librarians. I know there was somebody that was in this room earlier that I had heard last week said, "Why do we need the library? Everything's online." And I hoped to show that really a librarian can be a great guide to what's out there on the web. Because as we know with our students, right, everything supposedly is out there, but the stuff we want them to find, they don't find, right? A lot of times it's a librarian help you. So I'm offering myself as the OER librarian. So the title of this short talk, I don't want to keep you past 4:30, is, okay, how do I get started? Okay, hints from your OER librarian. And so for the purposes of the Going Open group and for the audience of Tunxis faculty, staff, and eventually maybe students, we have the Going Open LibGuide, research guide. Okay, LibGuides is the company. We tend to call them research guides or resource guides. And what I've done is this is all a work in progress. I'm developing a place, a hub for you to come, whatever level of interest you have with OER, whatever step in the process you're at, you can refer to this, but please remember that you can always just come talk to me or another librarian, because it is a little daunting. It's just like any other type of research, that it's not necessarily boom, you know, there's digging involved, there's thought involved, and there's a lot out there. Wait till you see just the group of resources I've gathered together for you. So a quick nutshell definition of OER. the whole retain, reuse, revise, remix, redistribute. It's kind of like a 5, if you remember, your 5 fingers. That's the essential part of OER. What I have done to be really OER meta is I've put together a step-by-step to get started with OER, but I actually borrowed this from Jen Claudigny, and I have given the proper Creative Commons citation. She has her LibGuide under a Creative Commons license that she will share and modify and adapt, and this is hers, and you'll see that mine is kind of similar, all right? And I've given her credit, so it's an OER LibGuide that is based on OER, all right? So I'm really showing you that I'm into this, right? All right. So we'll take a look at the step-by-step. I just want to quickly show the what's here. A find button. Actually, before I do that, let me show you this examples how you may choose to use OER. Okay. How does that look? Is that big enough? It is a table. You don't see the things. But just so it's not too daunting, but I think we really have kind of covered the spectrum of what you can do with OER. We had Deb, who's on a course level, choosing specific articles out on the web and videos, et cetera, with her class. We've seen textbooks that have been adapted. I like to think of it that you can adopt something that's already out there, just wholesale, pull it down. You can find something that's out there and adapt it to your own use, or you can create your own, like Steve did, right? And you can do that on many different levels. You can do it right on an item level, a specific item you're using in your course. For example, in one of my LibGuides for Survey of Literary Genre, this was actually Francina Dwyer. She wanted an audio version of Oedipus Rex for her course. And I found on LibriVox, which is an open source public domain audio book website, we found Oedipus Rex in audio, and we linked it in her course. And I would say like at least 3 or 4 students a semester would listen to at least part of it, which is pretty cool. All right. Then you can find something like a particular lesson. Here's some downloadable slides that are from OpenStax, which Kevin showed you the textbook, the Intro to Soc textbook, which I think we passed around. Here's some downloadable slides that are out on the OpenStax website. That there's some PowerPoint slides, there's a text bank, et cetera, that you could maybe, even if you're not using that book, you could pull down, some of that to adapt that's out there for a part of a lesson. Or you could just adapt a whole book, adopt a whole book wholesale that's right out there, or you could create your own. Light and Matter was created by Benjamin Crowell. It's print on demand at Lulu, and it was adopted by the University of Hartford. Okay, so this is to show you what's out there. Okay. And then a whole course. All right, there's a College 101, which Sailor Academy, which I'll show you, I have links to that as well. It's similar to a first year experience course. You could download, you can adapt a whole course. The whole units are here, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so there's the different levels that you may want to enter OER. So, how do you get started? Going back here. Like, set aside time. It takes time. It takes persistence. It is like research. We can't be like our students who want it done in 5 minutes. This is something that takes time, and that's why it is good to partner with a librarian for a little bit of guidance. See if there's something out there that is already similar to what you want, either a full course or a textbook. And that's where you might look at the Find tab. Okay. Get cozy with your learning objectives. I like this idea that, instead of just saying, okay, I want to replace this textbook or this whole course, maybe it's just one aspect of the course that you're looking for. How can OER meet your learning objectives? None of us need something foisted on top, right, or something else to do. But this really is a way, as Kevin mentioned, for you as faculty to really take control, and I think Deb demonstrated that, and so did Steve, of what you're sharing with your students. Okay? You can Google Advanced Search to search for open resources. We have all kinds of OER repositories and search engines that are here. Don't forget library materials. You can email me. And here's a whole online course itself for community colleges called Creating Open Educational Resource Courses. So that's my step-by-step to begin. Right?
And actually, Rachel, on that first page,
Yeah.
If you scroll down, there's an excellent little video there that's embedded,
Yes.
that square. I watched that. It shows you how to Google for OER
Let's go
materials.
to, I
for
can
your
do that
discipline.
quickly. So if you go to Google and under settings here at the bottom, if you choose advanced search, okay, I'm a huge Beatle fan, so I'm going to do the Beatles. And if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a usage rights limiter. And I can say, well, I want something that use, share, and modify. Okay? Of course, Wikipedia comes up. One of the, open educational resource, certainly at Wikipedia, right? Of course, all of these are Wikipedia. I shouldn't have picked this one. But
Like biology, I think, is what they used in the video. And whatever your discipline is.
Yeah,
or
you'll
whatever your
find
particular
you'll
course.
find materials that are. Let's do biology. Okay, here's a biology MIT course. Here's the OpenStax. Here's Biology Corner. So you can limit right from the advanced search to what's open, and that is limited by the Creative Commons licensing, which undergirds really the whole OER movement. Okay. So under Find, if you take a look there, this is kind of a real get your toes wet. These are some things to look at first. This is where I said Kevin stole my thunder. My first link is Find Open Textbooks based on your ISBN. Or Marguerite Yowen was here earlier. She asked me, she teaches public speaking, and you wouldn't think that the textbook for public speaking would be $90, but it is. And she thought that that's just a lot. And so she asked me to see what I could find, and I did. Come on. Yes, Toby.
What site was that Find Open Textbooks?
This is the one. This is, Kevin showed it too. Find Open Textbooks related to a book. It's the Merlot, this is Cal State who does Merlot. And you can put the ISBN there or the keywords. And I'm not sure why it's not working. Yes?
I'm curious, what's the makeup of your OER task force? I know Adrian's on it, yourself is on it.
Adrian, I'm on it. Diane, all our MIT guys, Vadim, Mike, Steve Ersinghaus, Hendry, who's going to be here today, faculty, staff, library staff, MIT staff. That's it.
Yeah, we have about 15 interested folks now, and not everybody comes to every meeting, but yeah, we have a good mixture of faculty, staff, library folks, MIT folks.
Yeah, so we
And that
share
makes
all of
for-
our expertise.
Yeah, and it makes for really good discussions and
Definitely.
just learning new things all the time.
So quickly, I know you guys want to take off, but this is kind of a beginning, get your toes wet. These are the big hitters, the Open Textbook Library, the OpenStax, Sailor, Open Course Library, some large repositories, but then I have an OER big list. Whoops, that's not right. I'll fix that. It's under here, okay? So books, complete courses, multimedia. I think I have TED Talks are here, LibriVox, Internet Archive, all that kind of stuff. Large repositories, images and artworks. And remember, too, that this is the sort of thing that your librarian is familiar with. The library collection is not just the stuff in the library now or even the stuff we subscribe to. We really want to help you curate what's out there, what you need.
And actually, too, Rachel, you do have a tab on there for contacting us.
Yes, we
And so
can help you.
Yeah, so it has a number of the committee members listed on there, too.
You can contact us. I haven't gotten to adopt and create because we're still launching here. I know Hendry really has created his own textbook, etc. We're gonna have support for how you help adopt things, maybe get them into the bookstore and create. But I do have some of the information about the Creative Commons. As I said, this really undergirds the whole OER movement where you create something and you put it out there with a different license type, or you use something and give the appropriate attribution or use it in the way that they would like you to use it. I also have a little bit of information about fair use, which is not Creative Commons, but there are some things that you can do with stuff that is under copyright. Again, always ask a librarian.
Right.
So I could talk more, but I just want you to know that this is here and that it's a great place to start. But even if you feel a little overwhelmed, I tried even on the find to kind of winnow it down, but it can be a little overwhelming. But please ask, all right? And whatever level you want to do, just maybe adopt something, adapt something, or create it yourself. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
Not being a Tunxis faculty, can I get in?
Oh yes, yep. This is out on the web. If you Google it, but if you go under research guides, it is going open, or you could look me up, but just go under going open.
Yeah, and stay in touch with us too, because if you find something interesting,
yeah, send it in.
we'd love to hear about it. So feel free to email it to me as the chair. Then anything that I get, I like to send it out to the whole group. And I've got folks that I copy that might not make it to a meeting, but so yeah, we've got quite a few people that are interested. So please stay in touch.
And one last quick thing that Deb talked about Rob. He has been putting together this reference and sites of interest. We've been migrating our whole print reference collection. We've been trying to pull everything from the web nowadays, and it's amazing what's out there. And he's been pulling stuff for each discipline that is OER or that is open or that's not open. And what I'm going to do is kind of cull all the open ones so that you'll have them by discipline. But I'm just starting to do that. But so that'll help too.
Okay.
Any questions? Yeah, Kevin.
Is that a question, a statement?
Yeah.
That every major OER initiative throughout the United States that's been successful has been successful because the library's been at the heart of it. So
Thank you.
Makes perfect sense.
Great to hear.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Deb, and Steve, and Kevin. Your presentations were excellent.